Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Quiz About Beers.
My name's... We should have a clap.
We should have a clap.
Woo! Just so that you know there are people here, right?
There are actually people in the room, and this is a panel to talk about can I be sober in the queer community? And we have got a great panel organised for you this evening. We've got Tom, Laura, and Mikey. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Scott. I run Proud and Sober, which is an online community for queers who are sober, funnily enough. And we wanted to bring together this panel tonight in conjunction with Quiz About Beers to just open up a conversation and bring back live events. So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. We'll just do a very brief intro. If you want to just quickly go around and just tell everyone what's your name, where do you come from? I am Cilla Black for the evening. So yeah, over to you, Tom.
My name's Tom. I'm 29. I'm from London. I've been sober 2 years next week. Always had a very bad relationship with alcohol growing up. And getting into scraps and whatnot, and it all came to a head kind of 2 years ago, and then haven't drunk since because it's the way forward for me. So that's be it.
Really upset because you've set the bar of saying your age at the start of your.
I did
on
it
purpose. 22. So I'm Laura. I'm 47, and I don't actually know how that happened at all. But and I also don't know how it's been 9.5 years since I've drunk alcohol, which is actually quite amazing. If you told me that 10 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. But yeah, I've been alcohol free all that time, and I run Club Soda, which is a mindful drinking movement for which Queers Without Beers is one of the important things that we do with our time. And I think I'll leave it at that, and then you can ask questions.
Very good. Mikey?
Hey, so I'm Mikey. I'm the youngest on the panel. Obviously, I'm 28. I'm from Manchester, but here by Bristol, not Birmingham, from Bristol. And yeah, I've been sober a while for me. And yeah, I work in the Drug and Alcohol Services in Bristol, and I serve on we have a recovery festival there, and I'm part of the committee. Kind of wrapping up that tonight.
Awesome. You should say how long you're alcohol free as well. You don't have to say your age though. It's fine.
I've been alcohol free 3 years last week, actually. Woo-hoo. So yeah, it feels like it's gone really, really quickly, and we've done lots of good work in that time. So yeah, we'll jump straight in because we've got lots of questions that were really well in advance pre-written, as everyone in the room knows. So jump straight in with how much is drinking part of your identity as a person, as a queer person, however you want to interpret that question? We can start with you, Tom, but I'll mix it up as we go on.
Sure. I mean, drinking was me. Everyone knew me as the person that went out, the person who was up for a drink, Monday night, Tuesday afternoon, whatever day of the week it was, I was the person to go out with a drink with. So I think I was known as the mess head throughout my friends. So yeah, drinking was a big part of my identity. Obviously now it's not. So people know me as the alcohol-free guy, which is great. But no, as a kind of queer person as well, I think it really embedded into me, like always out in Soho. I think drinks are cheaper in Soho, obviously GAY, a pound Jager bombs back in my day a few years ago. But yeah, no, definitely a big part of my identity.
Laura?
It's an interesting one because I feel that part of me thinks my queer identity and my drinking identity are two separate things and not interlinked, but I think we all know that's probably not true totally. But for those who don't know, I've got a big background in politics, and my political identity is a big part of who I am as well. And I was always somebody who would go for drinks after every single meeting, every single council meeting, every election. I'm a big drinker. I am my father's daughter, and I inherited his boobs and his drinking habits. That's basically how that went for me.
His boobs and his boobs.
So they sort of went hand in hand. But I think for me, what's more important is that because having children is never on my timeline, being on a traditional escalator relationship was never in my my wish and desires. It meant that as my age crept older and older, I could still carry on living the life that I was leading in my 20s in London. And there was nothing that meant that I had to get home, or that I had to, I didn't have any children to look after. I didn't have a relationship to nurture in that way. And therefore I could carry on living that life, and there wasn't anything that would pull a stop on it. And then when I got to a point when I ended up in a job that I didn't enjoy, and therefore eroded my sense of identity of who I was, my drinking just escalated, because if anything was going to be a symptom of that feeling of boredom and unsatisfaction in my job, it was going to be drinking. And so it wasn't hard for that to jump to a place where I felt uncomfortable about it. So yeah, there is something about not taking traditional paths that means that you don't have to apply the social norms that might slow you down as you get a bit older.
Yeah, so mine's a bit different. My drinking wasn't part of my identity; it was my identity. I worked with alcohol. I drank all the time. I worked on Canal Street in clubs that opened all day and all night, and I was the kind of person that, to the point where I couldn't go to work without finishing the bottle of wine from the night before. So, there wasn't any identity for the time that I was drinking. And I think coming from a place where, I'm not like Laura, like mine was really connected to my, being gay because of where I worked and where I lived. And when you're in a place where you've got a bar, a pub, a club on every corner, Canal Street's got 25 venues in a minute walk, that are open from midday through till, some of them open till 11 o'clock in the morning the next day, and you go home, or you fall asleep at the back for an hour, get up and start again. So it was like an all-encompassing thing for me.
And do you think at any point, and this is an open question to all of you, but just pick it up on your point, do you think that it actually helped you in a way in terms of kind of discovering your identity as a queer person? Because that's kind of essentially the way that we learn to socialise in the queer community. Is that true for you?
That's exactly what it was. Before I was 18, I was like this nerdy guy that was always head in a book, never had a drop of alcohol before, even when my siblings had it at like Christmas and New Year, and they dust off the asti spumanti, you pretend it's fancy. And I'm northern and poor, so that's what it was for us. And I went out on my 18th birthday to GAY in Manchester, and that was it. I went from that shy, quiet, retiring person to the life and soul of the party, which is what I always saw other people doing and wanted for so long. And I was like, well, hang on, alcohol means I can do that. So that's all I ever did. And it shaped that whole identity. Even now, like many years later.
I think I would say that I've done a disservice to myself by not accepting that alcohol had a big part to do with my identity. So I think alcohol works in two ways in the queer community. One is it's a socialising norm, and therefore we drink in order to socialise. But you often drink to deal with strong emotions. We're taught that in the UK. We're taught to drink to stay at things we're not enjoying, and we're taught to not like instead of going home, and then we're taught to drink that is the only way to socialise, and then we're also taught to drink to deal with our emotions. And if you've not been able to live your authentic self, particularly from a very young age, then you begin to self-medicate your emotions through doing that. And rather than doing the emotional development that we need, we do all of that through the lens of drinking. And I would say that in the 9.5 years since I've given up drinking, my emotional development has rocketed, and I've learned more about myself and been more comfortable in what for me wasn't a very comfortable identity, which is being bisexual. Back in the late 90s, I can tell you all sorts about how Stonewall felt about bisexual people in the late 90s, but it wasn't particularly nice. And so I felt sort of ashamed for not being the real deal and for being a shit lesbian, which is how I felt in the late 90s. And so I wasn't able to feel my authentic self. I didn't know how to deal with those emotions. So drinking was easy. It was an easy thing to do.
How about you, Tom?
Yeah, so drinking for me, and I've lost my train of thought now. You want to repeat the question for me again?
It's just in terms of, did you think it ever helped you?
Yeah, so I didn't have exposure to a gay community or really know what gay was growing up. I think it was quite sheltered from me. So I didn't have any role models. It wasn't ever seen on TV. I wasn't allowed from stuff, that sort of thing. So I didn't really know what a gay was, really. I just remember looking at Robbie Williams in Rock DJ, taking his clothes off, thinking, what is this? Like, is this me now? Like, I remember my mum worked at a nursing home, and I was watching TV in the old people's like lounge, and it came on. I was like, are these people watching me watch this, like, and enjoying it kind of thing? So that was kind of my first exposure. You know, probably was gay, but it wasn't in my head at the time. But no, and then kind of going out at like 18, 19, I didn't know gay bars existed until I went there, and I was like, oh, this is kind of like my people, and this is my thing, and there's alcohol here, and it's a lot of alcohol, and everyone's shit-faced, and I've got to get on board with that. So yeah, it did escalate it for me as part of that as well, because I didn't have any exposure to it, and I associated, I'm out, I'm with gay people, and everyone's drunk, so this is me now. I'm gay and I drink, so two go hand in hand, and then off we go on that rocket ship. Then I was super gay and super drinking. So
Super gay and super gay. 2 hero identities in one. Awesome.
Super gay and super drunk. So I suppose in terms of what we can do better in the community, because I think if it's true that we've all had a similar experience, mine's very similar to all of yours. What can we do that would be more positive in terms of understanding and helping people, not necessarily just be sober, but in terms of having a better and healthier relationship with alcohol in the community generally? I think obviously events like this are wonderful, and it's really great to have them, but they are few and far between, let's be honest.
yeah.
And how can we better spread that word and do better?
Maybe like an education, because I think you mentioned before when we met up in Starbucks, like you were talking to someone, I hope I'm saying, but you were talking to someone, you mentioned you don't
story, aren't you?
you mentioned you didn't drink, and they block kind of thing. So I think there's an education on, you can go out and you don't have to drink to engage with someone, to meet with someone, to communicate with someone. It's just that piece where you don't need alcohol to have a good time, which I don't think is just in our community, it's across everything as well. So it's just an education piece, I think, on that.
Do you want to go, or are you going to say the same story?
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Well, no, I agree, and you know, I think it's one of those things where it's a big discussion, isn't it? You know, it's not just like hey, let's do a couple of queers without beers events and that's it, problem solved. You know, I think it's got to work from both sides. You know, my experience is that, you know, to touch on what Tom was saying, is that I've had experiences where people think that because I don't drink, they can't socialise with me, because that means that they can't drink, because me seeing them drink is going to make me want to drink. I'm like, it's fucking tiring just saying it, you know. And it was what he was talking about was like with dating, like getting blocked on Grindr. And so I said, do you want to go for a drink? And I'm like, well, we'll have a coffee. I don't drink. And they think that they can't engage in any kind of communication or like relationship with somebody in whatever capacity it is, unless they feel that they can drink. And that's not the case, you know. We're all here in a venue that I'm guessing at some point has got alcohol in it, and I think
that was a
gasp from the room.
And I think, like, yeah, it's educational, but it's that I think there comes a responsibility for those of us that don't drink to kind of, it's not easy for everyone, is to not be ashamed that we don't drink, you know, and to kind of be that kind of beacon, because if more people see that there are people able to socialise and not drink, they will feel comfortable. It's like Laura said, for a lot of people, it's a crutch. Like, I don't know how to stand in a room without a glass in my hand, be that of like water or something, and be able to take a sip of something when the conversation dries out. And I think it's a talking point for a lot, but we don't have to associate that with alcohol.
I think I've probably thought about this a lot, because Club Soda, what we do in our day job is, we started Club Soda to create something that was a bit like Weight Watchers, but with booze. So we help people change their drinking, whether that's to cut down, stop for a bit, or quit. But really quickly, people started to moan about the fact that there weren't good alcohol-free options when they went out. And so we did some research, and then some of the alcohol-free options started to hit the market. So we did the Mindful Drinking Festival. And what has basically happened, I tried to set up a business like a proper grown-up. But what I've ended up doing is reverting back to what is me, which is we've created what is basically a social business, which has got some social campaign behind it. So I'm really interested in those social levers of change. And some of these things are no different for straights than they are for gays, or for however anyone identifies. But whenever I talk to pubs and bars about changing what they stock, I talk to them about the business case for doing that. Now, if you just look at the people that are alcohol free, that's about 4 million people in the UK. But if you include at the minute that half the UK population are trying to cut down their drinking in some way, that's a market of 25 million. So suddenly that's that's a big market that needs servicing. And funnily enough, people who still drink alcohol care more about the options they get given when they are in a pub or bar than people who have been long-term alcohol-free, mainly because I think long-term alcohol-free people have been beaten to death by J2O some time ago and just given up all hope. And so ultimately we've ended up doing is creating an equalities campaign that says, you know, if you go out to a pub or bar or restaurant, whether it's not about the strength of the drink in your glass, it's about the experience that you have, and everybody deserves to have an equal experience regardless of what you're drinking. And so that's the message that we go out to pubs and bars with. And then when I talk to everybody else, I say, look, you know, we're all mindful drinkers to a degree. I'm an alcohol-free mindful drinker. Drew, I think you're a moderating mindful drinker. Some people are religious mindful drinkers. They don't drink for religious reasons. But a bit like queer language, there are allies. We've all got different behaviours in this space. There are allies in this space. There are people who might be driving tonight who want something interesting to drink. And if we're all a bit louder, we'll get what we want. And that includes queer venues, because I don't have a problem going into places that have alcohol in them, and I know that for some people that is an issue, but generally what I want is wherever I go, whether it's a queer space, whether it's a general space, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a nightclub, I want to have something interesting to drink, and I want to have that served in a way that is equally as good as everybody else, not half a pint of Coke squeezed out of a hose and given to me like I'm 11, about to go and wait in the car park with my dad, right? I don't want that. So actually, how we treat people in our social spaces is really important, and it's just another. Not drinking is just another dietary preference. You wouldn't have no vegan option on the menu anymore. So why would you assume that there shouldn't be alcohol-free options? So I think but once we begin to change that language and put it in those terms, it's easier to have a conversation with both our friends, but also the venues that we frequent. And it means that we should all be going to the queer venues that are left, and there aren't that many of them, and say, have you thought about, you know, that alcohol shouldn't be the only default option? Because I can tell you now that there are, you know, the 10th biggest selling craft beer in this country is actually an alcohol-free beer. I can point to pubs that sell more alcohol-free beer on tap because they're drive-to locations and they do alcoholic beer. I can point to the fact that in all bar one, the 4th biggest selling drink is a lime and soda. So, you know, things have changed, but somehow our thinking hasn't caught up. But you know, people like Scott being around, other people being around, do make a difference. Being able to actively role model that and being able to make things better for the next customer that comes after you, it's a really important part of that. And it's all about respecting people for who they are and the choices that they make. And I think we can not only do that for each other, but we can do that for everybody in the queer space.
Can I just touch on something that you said there as well? I think it's really important is to kind of understand that this is not binary. It's not you drink or you don't drink. You know, like when I first got sober, it was through a 12-step fellowship, which for them, that is it. You know, it is a long-term abstinence thing at a time, whatever. And I mean, I still go, I still engage in all of that stuff, but not like, it's not just like one cap fits all, and it's not just one way to address this. And I think for some people, you know, in the 8 years I've been in and out of recovery, I've been sober for 8 years. But my kind of thing is the response I get when people do see me have a drink, because they think that, oh, you're not drinking, so that's it, you're sober. But there are people, like you said, there's mindful drinking, or there's moderating, or someone just might want to have a year. You know, I had a landlord once, I just a year off, not for any particular reason. And actually, it's more financial because of the money you saved. But if someone says, they're not drinking, that doesn't mean, oh, they're not going to drink for the rest of their life. And we need to kind of accept that. Well, we don't need to do anything actually, but there is more than just I'm not drinking. And
it's not binary. Nothing's binary. We all know that in this room, right? So why should we think the drink is binary? I always have a boozy dessert. That's what I always have it. I feel like I'm dicing with danger. You know, it's very thrilling.
Just to pick up on that, it's as if you read the script. I wanted to talk about moderation next. And I think it is important to acknowledge that there is a community of moderators as well as there are a community of drinkers and non-drinkers. And I just wanted to kind of touch on moderation specifically within the queer community and kind of just get thoughts on that in terms of, was that part of your story? Did it help for you? Did it not help? Kind of just general opinion, really.
So for me, moderation wasn't a thing because I couldn't do it. If I have one drink, see you tomorrow kind of thing. But people that can do it, hats off to you. Like, for example, I've got 2 sisters who drink and 1 sister who doesn't. The 2 can have 1 drink, and be done kind of thing. And that's kind of feeling like they can do. But the other two of us, not sure what happened to us, but we had one drink and I said we're gone for the night kind of thing. So I think if you can do it, it's a great thing to be able to do. But for some people, it doesn't work, and that's okay. Some things work for people, some things don't work for people, kind of thing.
I think I'm going to tell some things that anyone who knows Club Soda will probably know, which is I believe that if rather than thinking about whether you're a moderator or whether you're going alcohol free, think about the life that you want to lead and where you want to go and where you want to be. Because often the discussion around changing drinking is about what you're not going to have rather than what you might gain. And actually, if you're going to keep any goal long term, be that running or diet or not smoking or anything, you have to be able to see the life that you want to lead and see where that substance or where that thing that you do fits into that. And that's what will keep you motivated for the long term. So, it's worth taking some time to reflect and work and think about, where you drank, who you drank with, what it is that you drank. Ask yourself some questions. And it may be that moderation for you is saving drinking for the drink that you like the most, with the people that you want to spend the time with, in the place that you enjoy the most. And then you cut out all those other incidental drinks. And if you do that and that works for you and it gives you the life that you want to lead, then that's amazing. For me, and this is probably different to 12-step, is I don't consider myself an alcoholic and I'm living every day. I don't want to drink anymore because I prefer the life that I'm leading. And for me, that I would lose too much if I started to drink again, because I enjoy what I'm doing. And so ultimately, for any of us in life, we want to be living the life that we want to lead. And you have to work out whether alcohol will help you achieve that in any way or not, and put alcohol in its place. Absolutely stick it in its place.
It's funny. So I saw a tweet the other day that said we need to move the conversation from am I clean or sober to what quality of life have I got, and am I happy with that? And I can't do moderation for anything, and this year I actually went on a diet, stopped smoking, and took up running, all in the same. But I couldn't do it. Like for me, I start off in extremes, but then eventually I find ways to moderate. And my question now, when I am in whatever it is, not just around alcohol or anything, is, am I happy with what I'm doing? Because when I was drinking the way that I was before I came into like this kind of thing, I was not happy with any of it, And I think moderation is a very it's a useful thing for a lot of people. In the services that I work in with people, that's actually what they're there for. They're not there for like, I want to never drink again. And even for me, I don't have that mindset of I'm never going to drink again because I don't know. But some people do just want to get away from the lifestyle that they've got and the amount that they're drinking, and reduce to an amount that they're comfortable with, or just being able to not have every weekend like a mess, and be able to have like, even if it's one weekend out of that month where they can go out and not get drunk, that they can still experience the social aspect of going out just without the kind of internal pressure of having drunk and getting drunk.
I think what I often see in Club Soda members is that, people want to moderate because they don't believe they could go out on a Friday or Saturday night and not drink. But of course, until you've gone out on a Friday and Saturday night and felt what it's like to not drink, then you don't know whether you can control that or not. And so moderation becomes discussion around how much am I going to drink this week, rather than thinking, I'm generally alcohol free and occasionally I have a drink, which actually sounds very different, doesn't it? And Drew, who's my co-founder, who's behind the camera here, alcohol free is his default, and then occasionally he will have a drink. And the same with UC downstairs. That's very different to saying that you're a moderator because I drink on Fridays and Saturdays but not the rest of the week. And so again, moderation isn't one thing either. Yeah. And again, it has to be personal and it has to work for you.
I think touching on that about the kind of socialising aspect, I think it's really important to talk about that, because if we've all acknowledged that socialising and alcohol in turn was a big part of our identity as queer people, what does socialising now look like for you? Because I know that it's true for me. It's taken me 3 years to get to a point where I truly feel comfortable in a social space without a drink. And that's me being really honest. And when I first gave up drink, I truly wasn't comfortable, and I found it really difficult and uncomfortable, and I just didn't know how to do it. It's taken me 3 years to dance in public sober. And that was really big for me, because it felt like I was giving something up, back to that conversation about giving up something. But what does your life look like now in terms of socialising, and what would be your kind of tips for someone that's either moderating or considering changing their relationship with alcohol in terms of socialising?
So I can go first this time. Spice it up.
We were actually talking about this earlier on with me, because I am socially awkward. You know, when people were here earlier on and everyone was talking, I was just sat down, and that's just my experience. I mean, I can go out and I can dance, because that was my thing when I first stopped drinking. I was 20. You know, I was like, I still want to be able to go and kind of, you know, dance around clubs with my top off, and, you know, all that. Well, I only did it once, but, you know, but that kind of picture of what you want to be able to do and not have it around alcohol. But in my experience, the not drinking was just a very small part of it, because my ability to have the confidence to do things is about what my mental state is like, whether or not, you know, and not depending on how far I am, you know, from my last drink. And if I'm in a good kind of mental space, I can do what I want. Like I've just come like 120 something miles today, and into a city I've never been to on my own before. I've been here 4 times in my life, 3 times with people, and I was able to just, thanks, Mum. And, you know, and I was able to just like walk around, because I felt good about what I was doing. I was able to kind of be around without being like frantically panicking and anything, because that was my solution. Was when I was frantic and anxious, I'd get a drink, like we said earlier. But you know, I can do that. I can go into restaurants and sit with people who are drinking. I can go into bars. You know, we had a Coke and a lemonade out. Was it
out the welly?
Yeah, out the welly. You know, and that was a question that you asked. It's like, do you mind like going to somewhere where it's like, for me, I'm okay with that. Yeah. But clubs haven't been open for long, so you know, got time to get the shirt off. It's fine. Not
yet. Let's wait for the panel to finish.
Wait till the camera's off.
But we'll play the music at the end.
Thank you.
I mean, it's socialising is interesting, because it's one of the big barriers people have to thinking that they can change their drinking. Oh, my social life will change. Well, yes, it will. But also you have an image of your social life, which isn't necessarily true, which is, you've just pointed out, you know, we still think we're doing what we did when we were 20, but, you know, time moves on and socialising does change. And you have to accept that the image of who you are socialising and the reality might be quite different. So first of all, don't use that as a barrier to changing your drinking. The second is that for me, it was 6 months before I felt comfortable. For you, it was 3. But it does take practice to feel comfortable in the situation. The more you go out and socialise, it will feel awkward. Accept the awkwardness, but do it. The other is one of the big myths around alcohol that we hold on to as a whole society, and we hold on particularly if we're drinkers, is that, you know, you can't meet new people without drinking. But don't you think that's the saddest thing you've ever heard? One of the nicest things in the world is meeting new people, bringing new people into your life. And we've reduced it in this country to something that you have to do when you're half cut. What a load of fucking bollocks. It's one of the things that, you know, it's collective, you know, behavior, which is utter rubbish. So, you know, developing your social skills is actually something that you can do sober, and is liberating, because you begin to have real deep conversations with people you remember. And you also realise the thing that I've realised, which is nearly everybody is socially anxious to some degree. So once you go in a room, you realise that everybody in the room is socially anxious. Then all you have to do is barge into a group of people and ask a few questions. I know that sounds quite simple, because social anxiety isn't one of my issues. But for those of us, but now I see, but for those of us who aren't so socially anxious and gobby like I am, I see it as something that I can do, which is to go into a room and make sure that nobody stood on their own, and go and talk to somebody new and different, and make sure they're introduced to somebody. It's the skill that I can bring to the room. We've all got different skills, and that's okay. And you can develop, you know, your social skills, and you also don't have to stay for a whole night, right? So that's everything. The other is I did a conversation with Millie this month, and it was amazing. She said, oh, when I first said to my friends that I'll organise some events like the whitewater rafting and stuff like that, they all would go, oh no, isn't it just easier to go to the pub? But now, whenever they talk about things they've done together, it's always those events that she organised that weren't around alcohol that they all remember. None of them talk about the night that they all got messy. So you can become the person who organises the most interesting shit for you and your friends to do. And it's stuff that you might want to try and do. And that's all good. So, you know, take control of your social life. I can tell you, I pack so much more into my life than I ever did when I spent nearly all weekend under a duvet feeling shit.
Yeah, because my social life before, one, I didn't remember it, 2, I was hanging around people I don't know. I was in a shitload of credit card debt, and
Preach.
I'm so poor. And it was full of heated arguments, anxiety, and conflict with friends, family, and relationships and whatnot. So, but now I think I was with my friend Harry. I just got sober. We went out for a meal, went to buy Chloe. We caught up for an hour. We went home. I was like, I caught up with my friend. I remember it. I spent 15 quid max. I've had a banging time. Like, what a different world socializing is now, and it's better. I haven't fallen out with anyone. I haven't used my credit card. And it was just amazing. Like, I'm not sure if you remember down to Tower Bridge. But it's just such an easier life socializing sober.
You get more, it feels more and longer, even though you might have only spent an hour with a friend. It's just a whole different experience. And then you get to go home and make a packed lunch for tomorrow.
Yep. And remember watching TV.
Yeah, you get, and then you spend less overall. God, my spending is so much better than it was when I was drinking. I mean, I thought 2 things would change when I gave up drinking: my memory and sleeping with inappropriate people. But those things didn't. So, so not everything becomes perfect. So you need to know that.
Just back on while we're on the subject of socialising, if there is someone that feels like it is an insurmountable thing to go out and be sober, what would be your number 1 top tip for them?
Do it.
Nice.
Feel comfortable enough in yourself to try and tell the person or people you're going out with that you're doing it, because I think the hardest thing if you go out with people and they're not expecting it is for them to then try to turn you around and say, have a drink, do this and that and the other. So maybe pre-warn people first if you're comfortable doing it, and give them a little bit of context to doing that as well, because nothing worse feeling awkward enough at the bar that you're not drinking and then someone else going, oh, to have one, and then if you're so early on in your alcohol-free journey, then you're tempted to crack, kind of thing, I think.
I phone up venues in advance to see what they've got, and if they haven't got anything good, I take my own. Nobody seems to care. Obviously, it might be different in nightclubs, but where they check all the hands. The second is as you're right, but being firm and clear with people. Don't ever do that. Yeah, I'm not drinking right now, because they'll get in there. They'll see that hesitation. They'll be in. But also say to them, I'm not drinking tonight, and I would really appreciate it if you wouldn't put me under pressure to drink. This is a health goal for me. Have you got a health goal that I can help you with? And turn it around, because I bet you everyone has. They're giving up sugar, they want to do running, whatever. But make them know that this can be a reciprocity thing, and it doesn't all have to be about not drinking. But always be clear with people the behaviour you're expecting from them if you don't think they're going to be respectful of your choices.
But then don't be afraid to say no if they can't respect that.
Yeah.
Like, you probably might lose some friends on the way, but then
don't worry,
really
if you go after the second pint, they won't remember that you've gone. So it's okay.
But I don't really know, because in for me, everybody in my life knows where I'm at with drinking, and I've never had that experience. But I think one of the things is to kind of is to be boundaried for yourself. Have in your mind what it is that you want to achieve out of this, but also kind of don't have expectations on anybody to kind of adhere to what you want. Like, people do. Like, for me, my friends respect that. But also, I know that some people just don't understand. I've seen people be like, oh, no, go on, you can have a drink, to other people. But have your boundaries, make them really clear as well, and just do what you're comfortable with. Like, if you're out with your friends and, they want to do a whole night, and like someone said earlier on, and you just want to do an hour, like, you're not the bad friend for going home after an hour. Because for me, I would be the bad friend to stay longer than an hour, end up drinking, and then fight everybody. Because I think I'm Mike Tyson when I'm drunk. I don't scrap, but I think it. And I want to argue with everybody. So just do what you want. That's where I kind of got to. Is I just do what I want.
I never offer to drive, because then you have to stay as late as the person drinking the longest. Yeah. Oh my God, how boring is that? Don't ever do that.
Or just don't drive.
Yeah.
Ever.
I'm going to give the audience a chance to ask questions in a second. So if you have any questions, have a think. But I'll ask another question while we're doing that. So I just wanted to touch on relationships, because I think obviously we all love and want to be loved. And I think it's important to cover that as a topic as part of being queer and sober, and kind of really not necessarily go too deep, but just kind of ask the question about how it has impacted your relationship if you have one, or how it impacts your dating life. and what that really looks like. And we will start with Mikey.
Because you're dating, right?
Myself?
Yeah.
No.
You're not in dating.
So I've had one relationship in my life, right? And it was the one time that I came to London. And I got smashed and I went to see The Lion King. It was I literally all my life wanted to see The Lion King, right, live. So we came to London for the weekend. Now, he actually liked me drinking more because he said I can tolerate you more when you're drunk. Because for me, like when I'm not drinking, and so when I get home from work, the wine would be there, which, at the time was great. But when I look at it, I was like, maybe it wasn't the best thing, but I just kind of put on with it. But yeah, we came in and I got smashed and I waited, literally always wanted to see it. I had a panic attack at the start of the second act and spent the whole time outside whilst he watched it. I cried in the first 3 seconds as well because it was a mess. But that to me has kind of shaped my idea of relationships, not because of them, but because of me. But I don't care. I don't want one. I don't like the idea of it. Like I guess something for me is I know it sounds really cheesy, but I actually did learn to love myself because I despised the person that I was. Not just like, and I mean that. I absolutely mean I despised the person that I was when I was drinking at my worst. I hated myself, and I didn't love anybody. I couldn't feel love for anybody, whether it's a familial relationship or an intimate one, or even just a friendship. So now I just love myself, probably sometimes a little bit too much,
Never.
But but I always do have, I talked about earlier, like, that experience that I had on Grindr, because Grindr is the best app in the world, obviously. I've been blocked because I couldn't drink, and I've had that a few times, or I've had people who will be really engaging with you, and then when they find out you don't drink, you get the one-word answers, and then you get ghosted. And then you start to kind of internalize that and think that it's you. There's something wrong with you. And I got rid of that shit. Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
No, because I've not sworn at all.
I was just
about
to say.
Tom's dropping everywhere.
Laura set the bar with fuck about
I
2
was
minutes.
panicking about this for about a week, going like, am I allowed to swear it?
It's not the BBC,
Really? But yeah, so I got to a point where I'm quite contented, but there is always that kind of thing. Whenever I try and approach it, yeah, it's there. It's there. And I'm still, we're all still young, I'm still at a point where I'm like, I've got time.
Yeah. I
need to figure out who I am before I can have anything to offer someone else. And yeah. No, I don't want one. No thanks.
My boyfriend's actually in the room. So won't ask him. But no, so I think at the start, obviously he's going to agree here, but at the start of our relationship, it was very centered around my drinking and how can I get Nick to drink as much as I wanted him to drink, and then being a massive strop when he doesn't cooperate with my drinkingness. For example, and then obviously, well, it's not obvious because no one knows, but I work in a like a sales role in a software company, and previous roles, as you know, in sales, it's very drinky and boisterous, and we'd go out every night. And suddenly, for someone who hated shopping, I was always out shopping, just popping to the shops to buy some clothes, and then I'd turn up at 3 o'clock with no clothes. No, as in no clothes. As in no clothes in the shopping bag. So. No, it was a relationship that was fueled on my alcoholness, so I do apologise on public camera for that. But since kind of what happened with me and given that alcohol, I think we have formed somewhat of a better relationship, and now we only argue about me not feeding the cat. So, no, I think...
That's terrible in queer world.
Well, being drunk.
I forgot to feed him tonight. But no, like, I think you would agree, we are in a better place now in terms of kind of not drinking. Like, I know I didn't realise how little he drinks until I stopped drinking. So when I first kind of stopped drinking, we'd go out and he wouldn't drink. I'm like, it's fine, you can drink. Like, just not drinking, I can drink, you can drink, it's fine. So I don't want to drink. Like, but just drink, like, it's fine. Just I'm not drinking, you don't have to drink, it's fine.
You become a pusher quite quick.
Like, just drink.
My friend as well. It's okay if you drink.
Just get drunk. I'm not drinking, but you can drink. It's like, I really don't want it. I'm like, is that what it's like? Like, but no, so thank you obviously for staying with me and all that sort of stuff. But no, it's helped relationships massively, not drinking, for myself anyway.
I think if somebody doesn't want to date you because you're not drinking, then it's a really good early dickhead detector. So don't take it to heart. Just accept that that person isn't willing to accept the choices that somebody else has made about what's right for them, and therefore they're probably not right for you for a relationship. So let me just say that. The other is that when you begin to decide what the life you want to lead is, that also helps you think a lot more about the type of relationship that you want in your life. And we've probably all, had all sorts of relationships that have all sorts of impacts on us. But you can begin to reflect on what works for you and what type of relationships you want and what type of person you want to have a relationship with. So when I started dating after giving up drinking, I was very clear that I was after people who were, not after traditional relationships. I wanted to try a bit around polyamory. I went on lots of really great dates, of which a load of those people are still friends of mine and have appeared in various photo shoots for Club Soda, to be honest. So basically, and Drew and Lucy, who are here, are both people that I dated during that period. So it's less dating and more of a hostage situation. So basically, never go on a date with me. You'll be volunteering. Photo shoots, have to set up a business with me. So there's a warning. But I'm able to sustain a relationships much better because I'm able to, because I am a more emotionally developed as a person, and I'm able to deal with the issues that might come along in a relationship because I understand myself more and how I act more, and can take time to work out what's really going on rather than either reacting in ways that are just all about the fact that I'm too tired to engage with anything that's emotional, which I did in relationships, or to drink to stay in relationships that I really should have ditched years ago as well. So all I can say is of course, everyone worries about relationships, but giving up drinking won't stop you having great relationships. It will give you a better relationship, and the relationship that you deserve and that you want. And give it time, you will get there and you will find the right people, but you'll be able to do that in so many better ways as a more emotionally developed person. I once read somewhere, and you might know this, I think I've heard it from 12 people who've been through 12 step, that you stop emotionally maturing when you start drinking. So for me, that was at 14. So I've had a lot of catching up to do, and it's for the benefit of all my relationships now and in the future, including all of my friendships, which I consider to be also an incredibly important part of the mix, that I don't drink anymore. So this isn't always about intimate relationships. It's about all of the relationships that you have in your life, and they will all improve, or you'll be able to manage them better. Sometimes our first families will always give us curveballs, but they're certainly easier to manage when you're sober.
So really, you're the youngest person on the panel then, because you're 24.
Yeah, that'll do. We'll take it and go there.
Awesome. Right. Are there any questions that the audience would like to ask?
Yeah, so my question is, at what point did you realize that you had a problem, drinking problem? What was the warning signs, or how did you know it's the booze that really kind of making things worse in your life? And if you did cut it out, then things would get better. What was the moment of realization of the signs?
I think I've always known, but it was haha, that's just me.
Yeah.
And I just turned it into a bit of a joke when it's not really a joke. But kind of the turning point for me was I went out one night, got into an altercation, cracked on my forehead, blew both my eye sockets, broke my cheekbones, broke my nose, and broke 2 teeth. And that was just a nail in the coffin for me. There's been multiple accidents before that, but I just brushed it off. But that was kind of the big nearly dying and having to go to hospital and stuff was a turning point for me. So I was quite fortunate in the way, having an incident to happen, but you certainly don't need an incident to happen for you to realise, I think.
No, everyone always wants to hear that there's a rock bottom that gives you a sign, but often it's a niggling feeling all along that something's not right. And for me, I mean, a bit like you, I was always a big drinker. My dad died when I was 30 from drinking. And so I knew then that I'd have to give up at some point. So what I did is then drank as if all of the alcohol in the world was going to disappear sometime in the near future. And I had to drink it all now. So some of that happened. But there wasn't one thing for me. I did break a bone on Tower Bridge, and that began to worry me. And I went to a piece. Theatre is quite important to me. I went to a piece of theatre and felt that I couldn't fully appreciate it because I was completely hungover. The fact that I never remembered second half of the plays was never obviously a problem before. There were times when I was embarrassed by my behaviour. That I also felt that I couldn't get out of the job that I hated until I gave up drinking, which means that you end up stuck. And actually what I needed to do was get out of the job, and then that would help me stop drinking, which is ultimately what happened. So it's never one thing. I was never a daily drinker. I couldn't drink on a hangover actually, and all of those sort of things. But over time it was getting worse and worse and worse. And then I just decided very quickly that I had to do something. And I gave up 2 weeks before my birthday. Now, normally you would go, I need to give up at some point, but there's that wedding coming up, or there's that part, it's my birthday, and then it's Christmas. There is never a good time to just do it. That's all I will say to you. I cried on my birthday. We had all sat there and not drank anything in the whole meal for my birthday. And then the restaurant, this is how hardwired it all is, came around with free limoncello at the end. And I turned down free alcohol. And I wept. What is this? I felt both proud and discombobulated that I turned away free booze. Now it's just the chocolate that I would never turn down.
Yeah, there isn't an experience that I could say, like, the physical stuff for me, that was every weekend. I've broken bones, I've fallen out, smashed my face open, I've gotten I've been mugged, I've been beaten up, all of that stuff. Even to the point where I've been in a coma, with respiratory arrest, my whole, I couldn't even breathe for myself, all of that stuff. But there's an internal kind of just a click. Like I was saying earlier about the fact that I despise myself. So there was nothing that could happen. I lost jobs, I lost friendships, I lost family, I lost a lot of money. I lost all of the material and the physical, the tangible stuff. I lost all of that, but also I got it back. Every single time I was like, I'm just going to stop for a couple of days, and then I go and move on to another stage. But there's not just been one, this idea of rock bottom, because in kind of like 12-step stuff that I did first, there is this idea of a rock bottom, and everyone's is different, and it's not like there's a bottom, but there's always another one. There's always something lower down, and there was just this thing inside where I was just, working in a coffee shop. I'm not going to say it, in a coffee shop, having drank like half a bottle of wine at 4:30 in the morning to go to work, and then everyone's staring at you because you stink of booze, and there was just this internal kind of thing that just went like, enough is enough, and that was like a foundation. And anything that comes next, who knows.
You don't have to say forever, you just have to do something for now and see how it goes. Forever always seems like a long time. Well, less so for me now, I guess. Whatever.
I always say in response to that question, if you're asking yourself the question, then there's probably something you need to do about it. Because if you've got to a point where it's a consideration, then you know that there's something that you need to address.
It's worth saying that when we first started Club Soda, people used to put the number one reason for changing their drinking as losing weight. And now the number one reason is mental health.
Yeah.
And we can talk about all the physical stuff that we like, but I can tell you it's the mental health benefits that are the greatest.
Very good. Are there any more questions? Yes.
If you see someone in your life that you recognise has a tumultuous relationship with alcohol, do you feel the need to intervene? And how would you do that if you did?
Okay.
Very good question.
So my kind of blanket answer is no. But I guess that's like personal to me, because I know in my experience that there was no point, But I guess it's dependent on like what you kind of consider as intervening. Are we going to sit down and have a family meeting and put the spotlight on you, or are you kind of? I think what I would do now is just kind of address like something's going on. If you need anything, I'm here, because there was nothing anyone could say or do to me that was going to change. And actually, people saying it just meant that I drank on my own. You know, I was, you know, I think you said a lot of your drinking was out. Mine was on my own because people would tell me I was drinking too much or I drank too quickly. And when people started addressing the problem with me, it just pushed me into my room, you know, and drinking in the house. So, and I think I have the same approach to anything, is that it's like, I was like, you know, something's not right, but if you need anything, I'm here, you know, and let them come in that moment is needed, then yeah, but in general, no.
Drinkers are very belligerent with, you know, but I've come to the conclusion that it's hard to be a friend to somebody and not say something. And with everything else going on in the world, from, you know, racism to sexual abuse and issues, being a bystander isn't acceptable. So I like your approach, which is you need to let your friends know that you've noticed that there's something, but let them know that you're available and that if they ever need support, you're there for them 100%. And they may not take that up there and then, but they will always remember that, unless you tell them when they're really drunk, then they won't. But you know, tell them when they're sober, and they will remember that. And just knowing in the back of their mind that if they did decide to change something, they won't lose you as a friend will mean an awful lot. Because actually people do believe that they will lose all of their friends, and that's again another barrier to change. So just knowing that you're in their corner, and when you want to do something, when I didn't friends never mentioned anything to me. The day that I decided to give up drinking, I'd set a date. I was going to go on a course, and I told all my friends. The look of relief on their face said everything. I then proceeded to get completely wankered that evening. But anyway, to prove the point. But yes. So but I knew that as soon as I told them that they all had my back and that they would support me.
Yeah, I think pushing an agenda on someone, I think if it was pushed on, well, it was pushed on me, it made me go the opposite way, like you said. So yeah, reassuring that you're there, and even organising different activities. You're going to want to do different activities anyway if you're not drinking. Organise something different, and then call it a night there, kind of thing. Just let them know that you're there, kind of thing, so they can come to you.
It can be frustrating, you know, watching someone that you love kind of in front of you, and you know, we have this kind of like rescue kind of mentality of like, you know, I've tried to save people, you know, and it backfires, and it can be frustrating. But a lot of this is planting seeds, isn't it? And just being there, you know, and who knows what will happen.
It's difficult when you've gone alcohol free. You just want to save everyone else the pain that you went through, but it's not. You can't do that. It's
self-righteous. Not like,
yeah.
I did it with smoking. You know, when I stopped smoking, everyone had to stop. It's bad for you. You know, I don't now, but it was just that kind of thing. But also, like, we go through some pretty dark times, you know. And we like for me, in my experience, I knew that my friends knew, or they thought that there was a problem. You know, we're not oblivious to kind of reality most of the time, well, all of the time. But yeah, it's not an easy. There's no one way to do any of this, is there?
No rule book.
Are there any more questions from the audience? Yes.
What are your tips for creating new friendships that aren't alcohol based?
We don't do lots of social events, but I know lots of people who do, and they're fabulous. So like Scott does events and Sober and Socialist events, but the whole world apparently doesn't revolve around alcohol. Who knew? And if you go on to Meetup, you'll begin to find you don't have to go to sober things. You just have to go to things where alcohol isn't the focus of the event. Mm-hmm. And there are everything. Actually, Meetup's brilliant because if you go on there, you'll find that there are cinema groups, there are silent movie groups, there are groups that do walking, there are all those sorts of things. You don't suddenly have to become the most passionate walker in the world, but you know, if in the first few weeks of giving up drinking, you go and try some of these things out, then that's okay. You know, I believe that if you're at a crossroads, try every path, right? Just go, do stuff. You'll find things that you enjoy. I did a fuckload of sewing after I gave up drinking. God knows why. I made some hideous shit, but it kept me occupied in the evenings. So sewing some crap, and then I sold that sewing machine and moved on to something different. So try out stuff. Go and meet people. You will find that there is a world full of people who don't really drink that much, and they all do other things that are really interesting. And that, you know, could be anything from, you know, silent movies to sport, all sorts of different sports stuff. And it doesn't matter where you live. That, you know, when I first started Club Soda, I did these little guides to things to do without drinking in January in York and in Manchester. And there are life drawing classes. There's further education colleges doing evening classes. There is loads of different classes going to look at the sky at night, you know, outside of London, obviously, you know, where you can go and do all that sort of stuff. There's all sorts. It's amazing what's out there. There isn't anything that isn't catered for. And also, it's possible to do this. It's possible to get on a train, go somewhere, and come back on the same day without falling off the train completely pissed or missing the train in the beginning because you've got drunk the night before. It's possible to go quite a long way in a day and come back. Amazing.
I'd add to that one, and I think it's about one of the things that I found when I gave up was that I link it back to the identity thing, was that my identity was so closely linked to alcohol that I didn't actually care or know about anything else. So I went and found things that I love doing just on my own, and then found a community of people that enjoy doing them too, running, whatever that, do you know what I mean? Whatever it is that you like doing, because then naturally you've got that connection of a point of interest, and then you can kind of grow that network and hopefully find people that way.
You know, it is like it is surprising sometimes how many people want to socialize and not drink. You know, like especially when all of your socializing has been around drink. And if you can't find something, start it.
Yeah.
You know, I had a genius idea the other day that I just want to start a book club. You know, I mean, I'm going to do it online for now because I don't have any friends in Bristol, which I don't blame them. But, you know, there is so much to do. And I think, you know, like what Scott said is I started finding I didn't know what I liked when I stopped drinking. You know, and all the stuff I thought I did, it turns out I don't. I tolerated it because I was drunk, you know, and I never thought I would be a runner, ever. You know, the only thing I've ever done is run to Tesco, like before it was about to close, to make sure I've got enough wine to get through the night, you know. But it's the beautiful thing about this is the kind of self-exploration that you can have, you know, and you either continue on with the things that you know and already do like, or you find new things. And like I said, if you can't find it, start it. Do not be afraid to be that person that is spearheads it. And if no one wants to join you, I will. Whatever it is.
I meet some Club Soda people for swimming in the morning before work. We go swimming, we have breakfast, and we all sit there and go, wow, we've just done like 2.5 hours of socialising before work.
Yeah.
That sounds like really
That's
grown up.
amazing. I know, but I just marvel at the fact that you can do that before work.
Yeah.
It's great.
Cool. I just wanted to kind of close off the last 5 minutes with a quick fire round.
Did you have a
Oh,
question?
sorry, just have one more
I
question.
was actually only going to add this gentleman over here, because I do swing dancing.
Amazing.
And actually, that's probably the reason that I gave up, because they don't drink very much within that scene, but it's a really awesome scene. And it sort of gave me an avenue out, actually, because I realised that there are people out there who go out and don't drink, and it's actually really good fun. So, yeah, swing dancing, if you're thinking of something.
You're looking for a dance partner. It's a great way to do that.
Also, having other things to do outside of drinking is a really good way to get out of like going to places. Like, sorry, I can't come to the pub. I've got a swing class. Why not? Like, have other things to do.
We've got one more question.
It wasn't a question. I was saying to you, is it okay if I tell people about the thing that I do?
Yeah, of course you can.
Sorry. So I teach a diva dance fitness event for the Sober Girls Society.
Yeah.
And so it's like an hour of dancing like a crazy person with me. Everyone wears very tiny shorts. It's tremendously fun. And then we do a half an hour like meditation. So everyone just like lies down and chill. Normally we cry. So if anyone wants to come, we have one on in December. I don't know the date because I'm not that prepared.
We try and put as much social stuff from other organisations on our website at Club Soda, so we can try and curate that. And there's other things like Morning Glory Bin and stuff as well. But do begin to search. The internet makes it so much easier. So find all this stuff.
Right. So quick fire. Favourite drink now that you're sober?
Tonic water on its own.
I'm a big kombucha nut. I love scrumpy cider, a good kombucha. And the other is I now spend at least £60 a month on single estate loose leaf tea and matcha. So if anyone wants to come on a tea crawl with me, I'm the person. And I've got some great dealers. So just come and hit me up for tea advice. I can tell you it is possible to be tea drunk, and I've done it, but it's a very expensive tea. But come and see me afterwards.
The police can see this.
Yeah. It's all right. It's tea. It's tea.
Mikey.
So, do you know, I don't have a favourite, but I have become a tea drinker. I herbal teas, fruit teas.
It's not tea.
Tea. All of I've got that's all I get now. It's like tea caddies and loose leaf teas, and try and read my own tea leaf.
Might be at different ends of the teas.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I've only just started, so I'll age into it, I guess. But water. Like, I really underestimated how good water was. It was only ever a filler when I'd just thrown up in the club. That was all it was for. But water is fucking great.
Did you get really thirsty after giving up drinking? I didn't. It's like my body said, for the last 25 years, you were meant to drink some water. Now could you make up for it? That's what my body did.
I just replaced the sugar and ate loads of sweets.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
Haribo.
So, and I guess the thing is, if you do kind of stop drinking and you notice a bit of weight gain, so what? That's literally all it is you are replacing the sugar. I mean, I gained 20 pounds, but it went a bit further than just replacing the sugar. But yeah, water.
One word answer, Laura, to this, just to be clear. The next one. Favourite thing about being sober?
Time.
Hi, Laura.
Living my values.
See, never one word, never one answer.
Oh,
Mikey, one word.
What's the question again?
Favourite thing about being sober? One word.
Oh,
Water.
Yeah, extra.
peace.
Okay.
You said piss then.
That's a whole
Can you
other
tell the
one.
Nice and clear now.
You got the wrong week.
And then very finally, thing you wish you could say to your former drinking self. One sentence.
A sentence.
A whole
Well,
sentence.
Sorry, can we have a word limit for the sentence?
No.
So we'll be here till 9 o'clock.
Please listen to the alarm bells and people around you.
Should have done it sooner. What you would say to your younger self or whatever.
Try yourself.
I just I would say just don't be so hard on yourself.
Don't be afraid.
That's 2 sentences.
Tough shit.
She runs the gap. She can say what she wants. So I think we will bring it to a close there. Yeah,
Yes.
Cool. So thank you everyone for coming, and for those of you that joined us online. I think we've proved that you can be queer and sober. So thank you very much.
Mm.
Woo!